There's a place in the heart of Brazil where the earth is so dry it screams when you walk on it. They call it the Sertão. It's a landscape of jagged rocks and bone-white trees where the sun doesn't just shine, it punishes. But it's not the heat that keeps the locals indoors after the purple shadows of twilight stretch across the plains. It's the silence. In the Sertão, silence isn't an absence of noise. It's a presence. It's the sound of something holding its breath. I'm standing in front of an abandoned homestead near the border of Bahia. It's been empty for 40 years, according to the local records. But as I look at the threshold of the front door, I see something that hasn't aged a day. A thick, jagged line of coarse white salt. To a tourist, it looks like a superstition. To the people who live here, it's a barricade. They call it the Cerco de Sal. It's the only thing, they say, that can stop a Matinta Perera, a whistling entity that isn't quite a ghost and isn't quite a bird, but something that exists in the cracks between folklore and physical reality. Lately, the salt lines in this region have been breaking, and people have been vanishing. The anatomy of a barrier. Folklore dictates the rules. You don't just sprinkle the salt, you lay it in a continuous, unbroken path. If there is a gap even the size of a fingernail, the whistling ones can find a way through. I'm sealing myself inside the main room of this farmhouse tonight. I'm laying a circle 3 inches high and 5 inches wide. The locals believe the salt acts as a physical frequency jammer, a mineral wall that disrupts the energy of entities that don't belong in our vibration. I've deployed high-frequency audio sensors around the perimeter of the house. Why? Because the Matinta Perera is known for its whistle. It's a sound that starts in the distance and gets louder, piercing your ears until you feel like your brain is bleeding. The legend says if you hear the whistle, you must promise the entity a gift, usually tobacco or coffee, to make it leave. If you don't, it will follow you home. The sun is dipping below the horizon now. The sky is the color of a fresh bruise. I'm stepping into my circle. It's starting. The breath in the shadow. It's 11:14 p.m. The temperature in the Sertão drops fast at night, but inside this room, my thermal camera is showing something impossible. The air inside my salt circle is 22 degrees Celsius, but just 3 inches outside the line where the salt meets the floor, the screen is showing a deep midnight blue, 0 degrees. There are cold spots pacing the perimeter. I can see them on the screen. They aren't shapes, they are voids, dark, heatless blurs that are moving in a slow, rhythmic circle around me. They aren't trying to come in through the windows, they're testing the salt. Every time one of those cold blurs touches the edge of the salt line, my audio sensors spike into the red. I'm hearing footsteps, but they aren't coming from outside. They're coming from the hallway behind me. I turned my flashlight towards the back of the house. The beam cut through the dust, and my heart stopped. The salt line I laid across the back door, it wasn't there anymore. It hadn't been blown away, it had been swept aside. From the inside. Whatever I was trying to keep out, I had already invited in. The antechamber of folklore. It's right there. I'm shining my 5,000 lumen tactical light into the corner of the room. Normally, this light can blind a man, but the shadow in the corner, it isn't disappearing. It's absorbing the light. It looks like a person wrapped in a tattered black cloak, but the proportions are all wrong. The arms are too long. The head is tilted at an angle that would snap a human neck. And then it whistled again.
This time, the audio sensor didn't just spike, it translated. My software is designed to pick up local dialects, and it's struggling to make sense of the sound. Prometeu, completing the sentence. Você prometeu. It's saying, you promised. I never made a promise, but then I looked at the salt. The white crystals were changing. Right where the shadow was standing, the salt was turning a burnt, oily obsidian color. It looked like it was being charred by an invisible fire. The minerals were absorbing something, a kinetic, hateful force. My electronics are failing. The camera screen is flickering. I can see my own reflection in the lens, and behind me, the salt circle is starting to glow with a faint, sickly green luminescence. The entity isn't trying to cross the salt anymore. It's waiting. It knows that the salt doesn't just keep things out, it traps things in. The weight of the salt. I made it out. I don't remember how. I woke up at dawn, 3 miles away from the homestead, lying in the dirt. My clothes were covered in a fine white powder. I went back to the house to retrieve my gear. The salt circle was still there, but it wasn't white anymore. It was solid black. It felt like glass, hard, cold, and sharp. I checked the audio logs. Between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., the sensors recorded something I don't remember. It wasn't a whistle. It was the sound of my own voice, speaking in a dialect I don't know, laughing with something that sounded like 1,000 birds. Here is the terrifying truth of the Sertão. The salt isn't a weapon, it's a marker. When the locals line their doors with salt, they aren't just protecting themselves, they're telling the world that they're afraid. And in this part of Brazil, fear is a scent. The salt circles keep the entities at bay for a while, but they also act as a beacon. They say something precious is hiding here. If you ever find yourself in the rural backcountry of Brazil and you see a house with a line of white crystals at the door, do not knock, do not enter. And if you hear a whistle coming from the shadows of the trees, don't look back. Because the salt might keep the entity out of your house, but it won't keep it out of your head.